I watched my wife announce marriage was a scam and declare herself single. I walked out, changed the locks, and let consequences bury that stunt. It started on a Wednesday evening when she came home with this excited energy that immediately put me on edge. She had that look in her eyes, the same one she gets when she is planning something she thinks is clever. "We need to go somewhere special this Saturday," she announced, practically bouncing on her feet. "I have organized something really important for us." I was sitting at the kitchen counter going through some work emails on my laptop. "What kind of something?" "It is a surprise. Just trust me on this one. We need to be at the Riverside Event Center at 7 sharp. The way she said it made my stomach tighten. There was something off about her tone, too rehearsed, like she had been practicing this conversation. But I nodded anyway. All right. Saturday came, and she spent the entire afternoon getting ready. Her hair, makeup, the whole production. She picked out this red dress that she only wore to important occasions and kept checking herself in the mirror with this satisfied smile. "You look nice," I told her as we got in the car. "Thanks. You clean up well yourself." The drive to the event center was weird. She kept fidgeting with her phone, texting someone, then putting it away, then picking it up again. Every few minutes she would glance at me with this strange expression, like she was studying my face for something. "So, what exactly are we walking into here?" I asked as we pulled into the parking lot. "You will see. Just follow my lead." "Okay." The Riverside Event Center was one of those generic rental halls with beige carpeting and fluorescent lighting. As we walked through the front doors, I could hear voices and music coming from one of the side rooms. She guided me toward the sound, her hand on my arm in a way that felt more like she was steering me than being affectionate. When we walked into the main hall, I stopped dead. There had to be 30 people there, our friends, some of her work colleagues, even her sister and her husband. They all turned to look at us as we entered, and there was this expectant silence that fell over the room. "Surprise!" someone called out, but it felt hollow, like they were not quite sure what they were celebrating. My wife stepped forward, away from me, and moved to the center of the room. She had this microphone in her hand that she must have grabbed from somewhere, and suddenly I realized this was not a surprise party for me. This was a performance, and I was the unwilling audience. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "I know some of you are wondering why I asked you here, so I am going to cut right to the chase." The room got even quieter. I could feel people's eyes shifting between her and me, and something cold settled in my chest. I have been doing a lot of thinking lately about marriage, about relationships, about what we are all really doing here. She paused for dramatic effect, like she was giving some kind of TED talk, and I have come to a conclusion. Here it comes, I thought. Marriage is a scam. It is an outdated institution designed to trap people in situations that no longer serve them. So tonight, I want to announce to all of you that I am officially single again. The room erupted. People actually started clapping and cheering like she had just announced she was running for president. Her sister whooped from the back of the room. Some guy from her office yelled, "You go, girl!" I stood there, watching this circus unfold around me, and felt something shift inside me. Not heartbreak, not anger, just this crystal-clear moment of understanding. She had orchestrated this entire thing to humiliate me publicly. She wanted me to beg, to cry, to make a scene that would validate whatever narrative she had been building in her head about our marriage. She turned to look at me with this expectant expression, like she was waiting for me to drop to my knees and plead with her to reconsider. The microphone was still in her hand, and she was probably hoping I would grab it and make some desperate speech about how much I loved her and could not live without her. Instead, I looked at her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I looked at the crowd of people who were still applauding my public humiliation. Then I did the one thing she clearly had not planned for. I turned around and walked out. No words, no drama, no begging. Just a simple about-face and a walk toward the exit that felt like the longest and shortest walk of my life. Behind me, the applause died out completely. I could hear her voice, suddenly uncertain, calling my name through the microphone. But I did not turn around, did not slow down, did not give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove home to my house, leaving her to explain to 30 confused people why her grand finale had just walked away without a script. I got home around 8:30 that night and poured myself a bourbon. Not because I was devastated, but because I had some serious thinking to do, and good whiskey helps me think clearly. She did not come home that night. She probably stayed at her sister's place, expecting me to call and apologize for not playing my assigned role in her little drama. My phone sat silent on the kitchen counter, and I was perfectly fine with that. Sunday morning, I started making changes. First call was to the bank to remove her access from our joint accounts. Not out of spite, just basic protection. If she wanted to play single, she could handle her finances like a single person. Second call was to our insurance company to remove her from my health plan. Again, just logical consequences. Single people get their own insurance. Third call was to the locksmith. If she announced to 30 people that she was single, then she did not live here anymore. Simple math. By noon, I had new locks on all the doors, and a stack of her belongings boxed up neatly in the garage. Not thrown around or damaged, just organized like I was helping someone move out. Because essentially, that is what was happening. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone finally rang. Her name flashed on the screen, and I let it ring 4 times before answering. "What is up? What is up?" Her voice was sharp, incredulous. "Are you serious right now? You just walked out on me last night." "Actually, I walked out on your performance." "There is a difference. That was not a performance. That was me being honest about how I feel. Honest would have been a private conversation. What you did was public humiliation designed to make me look pathetic. So, congratulations. Mission accomplished." She was quiet for a moment, probably not expecting me to be so calm about it. "Look, we need to talk. I'm coming home." "No, you are not." "Excuse me?" "You announced you were single. Single people do not live in my house. Our house. Check the deed. It is my house. Always has been. You just lived here because we were married. But according to your little speech last night, we are not married anymore." I could hear her breathing getting faster on the other end. "You cannot just lock me out. This is my home too." Was. Past tense. You made your choice in front of 30 witnesses. I'm just respecting that choice. You are being ridiculous. Am I? Because I am pretty sure ridiculous was announcing our divorce at a surprise party without actually filing for divorce. I am just being practical. She hung up on me. I finished my coffee and went back to organizing her things. An hour later, she was pounding on the front door. I could see her through the window, still wearing that red dress from last night, looking significantly less put together than she had for her big announcement. I opened the door but stayed in the doorway, not inviting her in. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded. "Nothing at all. I feel fantastic, actually." Clarifying? Clarifying? Yeah. For months I have been wondering why you seemed so unhappy, so distant. Last night you clarified everything perfectly. You do not want to be married to me. Message received. That is not what I meant. Really? Because marriage is a scam and I am officially single again, seemed pretty clear. Was there some hidden meaning I missed? Her face was getting red now. I was making a point. What point exactly? That you enjoy humiliating me publicly? That our marriage means so little to you that you turn ending it into entertainment for your friends? Help me understand the point here. I wanted you to fight for us. I wanted you to show some emotion. I actually laughed at that one. So your master plan was to announce our divorce publicly, hope I would make a scene begging you to reconsider, and then what? You would graciously take me back in front of everyone? That was your idea of romance? She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. I needed to know you still cared. I did care. Past tense again. But here is the thing about respect. Once you lose it, you do not get it back by explaining why you threw it away. So, that is it. You are just giving up on 8 years of marriage? I am not giving up on anything. You already gave up last night. I am just catching up. She tried to push past me into the house, but I did not move from the doorway. Your stuff is in the garage. I will leave it unlocked so you can get it whenever you want. But you do not live here anymore. You cannot be serious. Deadly serious. You wanted to be single. Congratulations. Enjoy your freedom. I closed the door and locked it. She pounded on it for about 10 more minutes, yelling through the wood about how unreasonable I was being, how we needed to talk like adults, how I was overreacting. I went upstairs and took a long, hot shower. By the time I got out, the pounding had stopped and her car was gone. That evening, she started texting me. Long paragraphs about how she had made a mistake, how she just wanted me to show I cared, how we could work through this if I just let her come home and explain. I read each message and deleted it without responding. If she wanted to be single so badly that she would announce it publicly, then she could experience what single actually felt like. My phone rang again around 10. I answered on the first ring this time. What? Please just talk to me. 5 minutes. Let me explain. You had 8 years to explain how you felt. You chose to do it with a microphone in front of 30 people instead of having a conversation with your husband. That tells me everything I need to know about how much my feelings mattered to you. That is not fair. Fair. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been respecting me enough to discuss your issues privately. Fair would have been not turning our marriage into a comedy show for your friends. But you did not want fair. You wanted dramatic. Well, here is your drama. I hung up and turned off my phone. The house was quiet that night. Peaceful even. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up wondering what I had done wrong or how I could fix whatever was broken between us. Turned out the only thing that needed fixing was my willingness to tolerate disrespect, and that was finally working properly again. Monday morning brought the consequences she had not thought through. I was drinking my coffee and reading the news when my phone started buzzing with texts from her work friends who had been at the party. Dude, that was harsh, what she did to you Saturday. Man, I felt uncomfortable watching that whole thing. Hey, just wanted you to know not everyone was cool with how she handled that. Apparently, after the initial shock wore off and people had time to think about what they had witnessed, the mood had shifted. What seemed like empowering female independence on Saturday night looked a lot more like public cruelty in the harsh light of Monday morning. Around lunchtime, she showed up at the house again. This time, she had her sister with her for moral support, which told me she was getting desperate. I answered the door but did not invite either of them in. We need to talk, she said, trying to sound authoritative. No, we do not. Her sister jumped in. Come on, be reasonable. She made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. I looked at her sister with genuine curiosity. Would you humiliate your husband in front of 30 people to make a point? That is not what she did. Really, because I was there. I heard the speech, saw the applause. Pretty sure I know what happened. My wife stepped forward. Look, I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our issues. Our issues? What issues exactly? You know what issues. You have been distant. You do not communicate. You take me for granted. I actually smiled at that. So, your solution was to take me for granted so publicly that 30 people applauded when you announced you were done with me. That is your idea of communication? I was trying to get your attention. Mission accomplished. You have my full attention. I am paying very close attention to the fact that you thought our marriage was worth sacrificing for applause from people who barely know us. Her sister tried again. Look, she is sorry. She realizes she went too far. Is she? Because I have not heard an apology. I have heard explanations, justifications, and excuses, but not one actual apology for what she did. My wife's face got red. Fine, I am sorry. There. Are you happy? For what exactly are you sorry? For the party thing. The party thing. That is what we are calling it? Not for publicly humiliating me, or for announcing our divorce without discussing it with me, or for turning our marriage into entertainment. Just the party thing? She looked frustrated, like I was being difficult on purpose. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I do not want you to say anything. I want you to experience the consequences of your choices. This is ridiculous. You are acting like a child. Am I? Because adults discuss their problems privately. Adults respect their partners enough not to embarrass them publicly. Adults do not announce life-changing decisions to crowds of people without consulting the other person involved. So, between the two of us, who is acting like a child here? Her sister put her arm around her. He is right, you know. My wife spun around to look at her sister, shocked. What? I said it was a bad idea when you told me about it Friday night. I told you it would backfire, but you said you knew what you were doing. You knew about this? I asked the sister. She called me Friday all excited about her plan. I told her she was being cruel, but she said you would understand once you realized how serious she was about fixing your marriage. I looked back at my wife. So you planned this for days. This was not some spur-of-the-moment emotional outburst. You actually sat down, thought it through, invited people, rented a venue, and decided that humiliating me publicly was your best strategy for fixing our relationship. She did not answer, which was answer enough. That makes it so much worse. You realize that? If it had been a moment of anger, at least I could understand it. But this was calculated. This was you deciding that embarrassing me was acceptable collateral damage for whatever point you were trying to make. I did not think you would just walk away. What did you think I would do? Drop to my knees and beg you not to leave me in front of everyone? Give you the power trip you were looking for? I thought you would fight for us. Fight for us? You announced to a room full of people that marriage was a scam and you were single. What exactly was I supposed to fight for at that point? Your right to insult our entire relationship publicly while I stood there and took it? Her sister was shaking her head. I told you this would happen. I told you he was not the type to put up with drama. Shut up, my wife snapped at her sister, then turned back to me. Fine. You want an apology? I am sorry I hurt your feelings. I am sorry I embarrassed you. I am sorry I did not handle things better. There. Now, can we please just move past this? I stared at her for a long moment. You still do not get it. Get what? This is not about hurt feelings. This is about respect. You showed me exactly how much respect you have for me, for our marriage, and for our relationship. You cannot apologize your way back from that level of disrespect. So what? You are just giving up, just like that? I am not giving up. I am accepting reality. The reality that you thought so little of our marriage that you turned ending it into a public spectacle. The reality that you care more about making dramatic gestures than having honest conversations. The reality that you do not respect me enough to treat our problems as something private between us. I stepped back from the door. Your stuff is still in the garage. Take it whenever you want. But this conversation is over. Wait. She tried to step forward, but I was already closing the door. Do not make this harder than it needs to be, I said through the glass. You made your choice Saturday night. Now live with it. I walked away from the door and heard them talking outside for a few minutes before their car door slammed and they drove away. That afternoon, 3 more of our mutual friends texted me. Apparently, word was getting around about what really happened at that party, and people were starting to take sides. The tide was turning, and it was not turning in her favor. By evening, she tried calling 6 more times. I did not answer any of them. The woman who had announced she was single again was discovering that being single meant being alone. And I was discovering that some bridges, once you burn them publicly, cannot be rebuilt with private apologies. By Wednesday, the social fallout was becoming clear. I found out through mutual friends that the people who had applauded her announcement were now having second thoughts about what they had actually witnessed. Her coworker texted me that afternoon. Hey, just wanted you to know that what happened Saturday did not sit right with most of us. That was brutal to watch. Another friend called me directly. Man, I keep thinking about that night. The more I replay it, the more messed up it seems. She really blindsided you with that. Apparently, once the initial shock and awkwardness wore off, people started talking. And the more they talked, the more they realized they had been accessories to something cruel. Nobody likes being used as props in someone else's drama, and that is exactly what she had done to them. Meanwhile, I was getting invitations I had not received in months. Golf on Friday, drinks after work, dinner plans for the weekend. It was like people who had been walking on eggshells around our marriage problems suddenly felt free to reach out to me directly, instead of dealing with both of us as a package deal. Thursday morning, I ran into her college friend at the coffee shop near my office. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Hey, she said quietly. Morning. She hesitated, then stepped closer. I need to say something. What she did Saturday night was wrong. I have known her for 15 years, and I have never seen her be that cruel to someone. Appreciate you saying that. She keeps texting our friend group, trying to get us to convince you to talk to her, but honestly, most of us are pretty disgusted by the whole thing. Nobody wants to get involved. That explained why her calls had gotten less frequent. Her support system was crumbling because even her closest friends could not defend what she had done. Friday evening, I went out for drinks with some guys from work. We ended up at this sports bar downtown, watching the game and just having a normal, relaxed conversation. For the first time in months, I was not worried about getting home by a certain time or dealing with some manufactured crisis. Around 10:30, guess who walked in with her sister and 2 other women? She spotted me immediately and came straight over to our table. Can we talk? She asked, ignoring my coworkers completely. We are watching the game. Please, just 5 minutes. I looked at my buddies, who were all staring at this awkward interruption. You guys know her. This is the woman who announced she was single at a surprise party last weekend. Her face went red. Do not do this here. Do what? Tell the truth? I thought you were all about public announcements. One of my coworkers whistled low. That was you, dude? That story has been going around the whole office. That was harsh. She looked around the table at 4 guys who were now looking at her like she was toxic waste. This is ridiculous. What is ridiculous is you following me to a bar to continue a conversation you ended Saturday night. You said you were single. Single people do not chase their ex-husbands to sports bars. Her sister came over and grabbed her arm. Come on, let us just go. But she shook her off. I am not giving up on us. There is no us. You made that very clear to 30 people last Saturday. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? I was not lying. I was just trying to get through to you. Mission accomplished. You got through to me perfectly. The message was received loud and clear. She stood there for another moment, realizing that everyone at the table was staring at her with a mixture of pity and disapproval. Her grand gesture had backfired so spectacularly that even strangers were judging her for it. Fine, she said finally. But this is not over. Yeah, it is. She stormed out with her sister trailing behind her. My coworkers sat there in silence for a minute before one of them started laughing. Damn, man. She really thought embarrassing you publicly was going to win you back. Apparently, that is some next-level crazy right there. The weekend was peaceful. I cleaned out the garage completely, organized some things I had been putting off, and actually enjoyed being in my own space without walking on eggshells. No drama, no manufactured crisis, no emotional manipulation disguised as communication. Sunday afternoon, her best friend from high school showed up at my door. This was interesting because this woman had always been polite but distant with me. Now she looked genuinely upset. I need to apologize to you, she said before I could even say hello. For what? For not speaking up Saturday night. For letting her do that to you. For applauding when I should have walked out. I leaned against the doorframe. Why did you not? Because I was shocked. Because it happened so fast. Because I did not want to make a scene. She shook her head. But mostly because I have been listening to her complain about your marriage for months, and I thought maybe she had a point. And now I realized she was painting a picture that was not real. The things she said about you, the way she described your relationship, it does not match up with what I saw Saturday night. What did you see Saturday night? A woman humiliating a man who clearly loved her. A woman so desperate for attention and control that she would destroy her marriage publicly just to prove a point. She looked genuinely ashamed, and I helped her do it. She made her choice. You just happened to be there when she made it. She is falling apart, you know. None of us want to be around her anymore. She keeps calling, texting, showing up at our houses trying to get us to help her fix this. But there is nothing to fix. She broke something that cannot be repaired. I know. She thought you would come crawling back. She was so sure you would beg her to reconsider when you just walked away. She shrugged. I think that is when she realized she had miscalculated everything. After she left, I sat on my back deck with a beer and thought about how quickly everything had changed. A week ago, I was married to a woman who thought so little of me that she would make our relationship problems into public entertainment. Now, I was free from that toxicity, and even her closest friends were admitting she had been wrong. Sometimes the best response to someone trying to humiliate you is to simply refuse to be humiliated. Let them stand there with their microphone and their audience, talking to empty air, while you walk away with your dignity intact. The people worth keeping in your life will respect you for it. The ones who do not were not worth keeping anyway. The second week after her announcement brought desperation. She started showing up everywhere I went, like she was tracking my movements. Monday morning, she was waiting by my car in the office parking garage. I walked past her and got in without acknowledgement. She knocked on the window, talking through the glass about how we needed to work things out. I started the engine and drove away while she was still talking. Tuesday, she appeared at the grocery store while I was shopping, followed me down the cereal aisle, making her case to my back about counseling and second chances. I finished my shopping and left her standing there between the Cheerios and cornflakes. Wednesday brought a new strategy. She started using other people as messengers. Her mother called, trying to guilt me about breaking up the family. Her brother texted, asking if we could meet for coffee to discuss things like adults. Even my own mother got a call from her, crying about how she had made a mistake and just wanted to come home. I told everyone the same thing. She made her choice publicly, and I was respecting that choice. Thursday evening, I was at the gym when she walked in. She had never worked out a day in our entire marriage, but there she was, in brand new athletic wear, pretending to use the elliptical machine while staring at me. I finished my workout and headed to the locker room. She actually followed me to the men's locker room door and stood there, waiting for me to come out. The gym staff had to ask her to leave. Friday was the peak of her campaign. She sent flowers to my office with a card that said, "I am sorry," in handwriting that looked like a child's. Then she had a singing telegram show up during my lunch meeting. A woman in a ridiculous costume sang some song about forgiveness while my client sat there in confused silence. I told the singer, "Thank you," tipped her $20, and continued the meeting like nothing had happened. My clients were impressed by how I handled it. One of them even mentioned it showed good character under pressure. That weekend, she escalated to pure manipulation. She started posting on social media about depression and loneliness, clearly fishing for sympathy and hoping someone would pressure me to take her back. When that did not work, she posted old photos of us together with captions about better times and fighting for love. I did not respond to any of it. I did not even look at it. Actually, friends kept telling me about her posts, but I blocked her accounts the day after her announcement. Sunday night, she tried the nuclear option. She called, pretending to be having some kind of emergency, crying hysterically about being in trouble and needing help. When I did not immediately rush over, she had her sister call with the same story. I drove to her sister's place to check on her, but not because I was worried about her. I went because I wanted to see exactly how low she was willing to go. She answered the door perfectly fine. No emergency in sight, just red eyes from crying and desperation written all over her face. "You came," she said. "Like this proved something. Your sister said you were in trouble. I can see you are not. I am leaving. Wait, please. I just wanted to talk to you face to face without interruptions. So, you lied about an emergency. That is your idea of mature communication? I was desperate. You will not take my calls. You will not see me. You will not even acknowledge that I exist. You announced you were single. Single people do not get to demand attention from their ex-husbands. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You planned it, organized it, and executed it perfectly. The only mistake was assuming I would play along with your drama." She grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I cannot focus on anything. I miss you so much. It is killing me." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. "That is what consequences feel like. You will get used to it. How can you be so cold? We were married for 8 years. And you threw those 8 years away for applause from people who barely know us. You chose your audience over your husband. Now you get to live with that choice." I pulled free from her grip and walked back to my car. She followed me, still talking, still pleading, still trying to negotiate her way out of the hole she had dug for herself. As I drove away, I could see her in my rearview mirror, standing alone in her sister's driveway, finally understanding that some bridges cannot be rebuilt once you have burned them in front of 30 witnesses. The woman who had wanted drama so badly was getting exactly what she had asked for. The problem was, she was the only one still watching the show. 1 month after her grand announcement, I was having the best evening I had had in years. I had grilled a perfect steak, opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving, and was watching the playoffs in complete peace. Around 9:30, it started raining. Not just regular rain, but one of those heavy downpours that makes you grateful to be inside with a roof over your head. That is when I heard it. A soft knocking at the front door, barely audible over the rain. I looked through the window, and there she was, soaking wet, no umbrella, no coat, just standing there in jeans and a t-shirt that were plastered to her body. Her hair was matted down, mascara running down her cheeks, looking like she had been standing out there for a while. She knocked again, more desperately this time. I stayed at the window, watching her through the glass. She looked up and saw me there, pressed her palm against the window like she was trying to reach through it. "Please," I could hear her say through the glass. "Please, just let me in. We need to talk." I stood there for a long moment, taking in the full picture. This was the same woman who had stood up in front of 30 people a month ago, microphone in hand, announcing that marriage was a scam and she was single again. The same woman who had planned that humiliation for days, invited an audience to witness it, and expected me to beg for her forgiveness. Now she was begging in the rain. The irony was perfect, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no urge to gloat. Just emptiness where my feelings for her used to be. She knocked harder, more frantically. "I know you are there. I can see you. Please, just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That is all she wanted now. 5 minutes to try to undo a month of consequences for 8 seconds of public humiliation. I moved away from the window and sat back down on my couch, picked up my wine glass and took a sip. The steak was getting cold, but it still tasted perfect. The knocking continued for another 10 minutes, sometimes soft and pleading, sometimes desperate and demanding. I could hear her voice through the door, muffled by the rain and the walls, but I did not try to make out the words. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I looked out the window again and saw her sitting on my front steps, hunched over with her head in her hands, rain still pouring down on her. Part of me wondered how long she would sit there. Part of me wondered if this was another performance designed to make me feel guilty enough to open the door. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of being treated like a supporting character in someone else's story about empowerment and independence. She had made her choice that night at the event center. She had chosen her audience over her husband. Public humiliation over private conversation. Applause over respect. Every consequence that followed was just the natural result of that choice. I finished my wine and went upstairs to bed. From the bedroom window, I could see she was still there, still sitting in the rain like some kind of tragic movie heroine, waiting for her redemption scene. But this was not a movie. This was real life, where actions have consequences and some mistakes cannot be fixed with tears in the rain. I closed the curtains and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, she was gone. There was a soggy piece of paper stuck to my front door, probably a letter she had written while sitting there. I threw it away without reading it. 3 months later, I heard through mutual friends that she had moved to another state, started over somewhere new, away from the social circle that had witnessed her spectacular miscalculation. I never saw her again.